SheerLee here with siriustalesmoon. We have Jupiter, our moon day, and midheaven is 6 degrees, Sagittarius on my Ketu. Ascendant is 24 degrees, Aquarius with Deneb Algedy. So we can call on Antares and Deneb Algedy. Sol is 22 in Capricorn. Happy solar return to someone. And damn, Sol is 22. I've been watching Ismatu, Gwendoline, and nothing to elaborate, just watch this channel. Such an inspiring person. So I want to talk about some tips for people that speak up. Okay? Some tips for people that speak up. One thing is the core issue of everything that's fundamentally wrong with everything is we need to have zero rape, zero ritual abuse, which leads to zero slavery and zero exploitation society. When it's not on a cultural level, this breeds extortion cults which affect any structure, governmental or not governmental. Now, when we know this, when we have established this point, we can begin to address our issues as infiltration of extortion cults of, let's say, government. So, okay? For example, I'm situated in Israel and I'm half Dutch. I don't speak against Israeli government. I expose the infiltration of extortion cults into Israeli society and the global rubbing shoulders with Epstein and Epstein-like extortion cults that permeates the ability to make sovereign decisions in the face of global economy, oil companies, gas companies, and so on and so forth, and thus infiltration also of military alliances, even by the foundation. Okay? And so I don't speak against the government. I understand that the things that I don't like are a result of these extortion cults. Likewise, I don't speak against the Dutch government, monarchy, and so on and so forth. Even when I take a look at Vogue, okay, Dutch East India, I take a look at what went right, what went wrong, and why. They were Protestants in a sea of Catholicism, for example. This is both the truth, okay? It's tackling the problem. Dropping the government won't work until we tackle extortion cults. A government cannot be representative without tackling extortion cults and ritual abuse as wealth consolidation. I don't fool myself to think that I am better than Trump or better than Bibi or better than whatever blue pill. In fact, I expose what is the difference in upbringing, in rituals that creates those differences in perspectives. Now, when people tackle situations of speaking up or having to speak up, knowing that that's the core problems. I know it's scary to talk about extortion calls, but there's no need to create misconceptions with the government when the government is not the core problem. Okay? It's not like there's a government telling to an oil company or to a debt release, no, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to Pfizer up our country and depopulate it. The government is dealing with the same problems that I'm dealing with, which is sovereignty in the face of extortion calls. This is why the regime is not representative. Now, as scary as it is to talk about that, it's also important. This is also why when people talk about, oh, Israel Palestine, I'm like, well, they want to drill the oil and gas in the Dead Sea. So they make a war by infiltration of both sides with tremendous horrific ritual abuse. And then they loot the place. UN declares genocide, okay? Freaking genocide if we go by the UN. And then I see Mama Taliban's back in Gaza. It's not the women. Those women are trafficked. That's extortion cults. There are many people, there are many types of extortion cults. Let's say I live in a country, suddenly that country is in war. There are many parts of extortion cults that are seeking for people to go against their countries. Well, do you guys abolish extortion cults? Ritual abuse? Do you guys use the psychiatric and health institutions against the sovereignty of people who speak up? Then maybe the problem is not my country, but the extortion cults that infiltrate all countries? Now, knowing that, and hey, if people are courageous enough to speak up, then, picking the bigger fight, how should I say? They say pick your battles, and I'm saying picking the bigger fight because if you're already speaking up, probably there's some circumstances that made you speak up. Then, if you pick the bigger fight, then you know that everything is a derivative of that bigger fight. My government decided a decision that I don't like. Well, who infiltrated the government to do that? Extortion cults. If we abolish today extortion cult and have zero rape, zero slavery, zero exploitation society in the Middle East, do I care what is the name of the country that actually holds water for human rights? No. Honestly. So I have nothing for or against my country or any country. As long as I'm treated well, if there is a problem, I say, okay, I have to be authentic and honest. It's not that my government decided to go against me. It's that there is infiltration and extortion. If it was my government deciding to go against, I would say, okay, let's have people that run to the parliament. What's in between representation and democracy? Adolf Epstein. They say he's dead, so I can say it, right? So why should I blame Bibi or Sarah? I don't have to vote for them. Them I can change with my vote. Or at least I'm supposed to be able to. If I'm not able to, why? Something to do with Adolf Epstein. And that pertains to the Supreme Court. In Israel, they wanted to have a juristic revolution. Basically, that the jurisdiction would be elected, something to do with the government. Supposedly a more representative jurisdiction. Doesn't sound like an overly terrible idea, because the jurisdiction, Supreme Courts all over the world, were unelected. But without representation, none of that means anything. Is the representation about blue pill or red pill? No, it's about the wealth consolidation on natural resources, which is also real estate and later also housing. Those are the derivatives from extortion calls. So what's between representation and wealth consolidation that is equitable to each and every citizen in the world? The Adolf Epsteins. The Adolf Epsteins. Now, if you know it, my belief is pick that. If you speak up about that. Because if you don't pick the bigger fight, you're gonna have to fight the bigger fight anyway. Now, some people say, well, the world is not ready to hear about that yet. Okay, but you run the risk of contradicting yourself in the future. For example, if we fight for LGBTQ rights, and then we discover that there is ritual abuse done to add a P to the LGBTQ, and that ritual abuse is to switch pain and pleasure, which develop what? Sadistic personalities. And make people be able to have sex without love, which basically replaces relaxed arousal with misplaced arousal, which creates trauma bond and erotic addictions. And the amount of healing in spite of every system that it took. And in spite of every therapist. It is so. And the fact that, yes, so we talked about the pain, pleasure, the misplaced arousal instead of relaxed arousal. And those change also because for extortion cult, if they can have one person that sleeps with anything, then for them LGBTQ and P is very important. The P is extremely important because without that the extortion cult is, LGBTQ is a weak argument because people say if two adults consenting, okay, but with the P now it's so they have to keep it illegal to be, they have to keep it a taboo to be pedophile, and they have to continuously strive to make it supposedly a not taboo. That creates the liminal space of extortion cults that allows the extortion, and it puts everybody in a horrid situation. So if we don't talk about the extortion cults, basically what we're doing is setting ourselves up. Yes, LGBTQ rights is so important, is so important, is so important. Yes, what about the P? That's not. Yeah, but there were also people that became gay because they were ritually abused. And then when they recovered from ritual abuse, they also found out that their sexuality is not gay. So if we want to hold space for LGBTQ, we have to talk about the bigger fight. Not to fear that if we talk about the fact that in some cases ritual abuse alters the sexuality of a person, if we don't talk about it, we end up contradicting ourselves because we're gonna have to deal with the bigger fight. We're gonna have to deal with the fact that within extortion cults, you have to be gay in order to participate in real estate, And that can be with forced gender change. And the real estate is basically an Epstein Island. And outside, you cannot have apartment supposedly because you're gay, and then you're forced to be in supposedly sex work. Now, that leads me to the next point. When it comes to sexual sovereignty, when Anneke Lucas was escaping extortion cult, the person, and it was a mafia person that helped her. So we understand that he was also a human trafficker. He told her, marry a rich banker. She has elite status, so she said, marry someone not too rich, okay, not Epstein list rubbing shoulders, but yes, somebody stable. You can support you financially because she would need housing independent of ability to work in order to recover and heal. Of your status, okay, of your somebody is compatible with elite status but not too rich. And he said another thing: never, ever, 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 ever sleep with a man for money. He didn't say prostitution. He said never sleep with a man, even the husband. Why? Because when it comes to root chakra and sex chakra, the survivalistic needs and the relational pattern, this energy exchange basically siphons the energy away. It participates in exploitation-based energy, whether it's victim or perpetrators. Even if woman does an incubus or a succubus, I don't know what they call it, uh, it's to clarify energetically the relational chakra and the root chakra, which translates to the throat chakra and the crown chakra, and the interconnectedness to the all that is. Which the divine love, where somebody is able, we'll call it divine love or motherly love, that somebody is connected to the all there is and they can recover. Now, when they do the ritual abuse, that some people went through that and they're dissociated so they don't know that. They can rationalize sex work, whereas a person that either is recovered or not in that situation would even try to kill themselves and not to go to sex work. So we basically say sex trafficking, and in that case, that person escaping that has diplomatic immunity. That people don't respect diplomatic immunity is basically an added crime against humanity, for which they are entitled to shilumim from the state, or two states. Now, when we talk about situations of whether detainees or those type of situations, okay? The state of having relaxed arousal replaced with misplaced arousal can be a contributing factor, okay? Contributing factor, not sole factor, contributing factor to repetition of detainment and incarceration situations. Even the situation of a person, okay, within those situations is improved the more they stand for relaxed arousal or even meeting non-erotic needs and not going to erotic needs instead of misplaced arousal, which means trauma-based sexuality that later exceeds to pain-pleasure replacement. that can create sadistic and masochistic, and this is for people that are in extortion calls or run extortion calls in real estate. I think that BIPOC people, they would do sadistic, masochistic, but others they would do, not always, but because they do the pain pleasure replacement, then and they do humiliation rights, then I think a lot of them are both sides of very taboo topic, but this needs to be out there because there are many people that are in situations where they're almost forced to speak up. Various reasons, whether it's women demonstrating in Iran, or I don't know, ISIS in United States, or many people in many situations. And understanding, okay, when we talk about infiltration of the state rather than the state, we are not colliding with something that anyway is not sovereign in the face of extortion calls. And we're opening the opportunity for a government to change benefically. Whether it takes that opportunity or not doesn't matter. But if we're colliding with the state, basically what we're creating, anyway we're going to have to deal with extortion calls, but we're just going to exhaust ourselves, putting our energy into this battle, which is scary enough, but is not really tackling to the issue that would change the situation. And we would sooner or later have to face to the fact that the more we collide with the state or the government, the more the state is going to show us how was that state created, okay, which is the dynamic of those extortion calls. Partially, it's what's happening in ICE right now, or where they call it that people are not people anymore. Okay, that's basically what's happening. Because if we go 2-3 decades, somebody would have said the word MK Ultra, although Bill Clinton apologized for MK Ultra, said that he would defund. I know he was rubbing shoulders with Epstein and so on and so forth, and still, then when somebody would talk about ritual abuse, they would say satanic panic. Now again, I'm not saying Bill Clinton is a saint, yes? It's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have a preliminary to a US president openly apologizing for cloning project, syphilis experiment, and MK Ultra, with compensations to the people where it was back in the 70s and the 50s. That was 1995. Now MK often, which is use of dark occult and technologies that are not on the visible frequency against civilians, is the sister of MK Ultra. All of that is declassified. But yet people talk about satanic panic and conspiracy theories. Now we are in a situation where people say people are not people in anymore. I wonder why. All funded by what? Classified projects, which is public money. Now, I know those topics are shitfuck triggering, but I also know that more and more people are pushed to the threshold where they are forced to speak up. Some of them, by the way, people, some of them leaders. And those are things that can really be points of interference in that. Now again, contributing factors. It's not the sole thing, and I'm not saying that you cannot do well without it. I'm just saying that those are things that I noticed are definitely important. Um, and also, if you know them, you are less susceptible to fall into traps of blaming your government for something that an extortion call does, that's also in the country where they try to allure you to go against your own government. Without judging of whether the government is good or bad. If we want an output of good government, we must tackle extortion cults and wealth consolidation using ritual abuse. On a global scale, yes. What can I say? Scary? Yes. The biggest battle? Absolutely. Can we avoid that biggest battle by fighting smaller battles? I don't think so. So, yes, I hope this helps.